Students, welcome to the online class once more. We have already completed two stories, and today I would like to start a poem. Our first poem is Sita by Tarudat. Let us start it. Sita by Tarudat. About the poet Tarudat, 4 March 1856, 30 August 1877, was the youngest of the three children of Govind Chandra Dutt, an established Bengali poet who wrote in English and French. Deeply influenced by the glamour of the West, her father converted to Christianity when Taru was 6 years old. The unexpected death of her brother Abzu in 1865 left the family heartbroken. The family left for Europe in 1869, and the two sisters, Taru and Haru, went to a French school at Nice. The next year they went to London, where Taru and her sister took lessons in music. In 1871, the family moved to Cambridge, where both the sisters attended lectures. They returned to Calcutta in 1873, and both sisters plunged into active writing, spending their time in City House at Rambagan and the Garden House at Baumari. Unfortunately, the literary strain became unbearable for Aru, and she soon died of consumption. This was a heart-rending calamity for Taru and her father. Her first essay was published in the Bengal magazine in 1874, and her first volume of French poems, Archives Gleaned in French Fields, was printed in 1876. By 1877, Taru's health was failing, and there was recurrent attacks of fever and cough spasm. She died on 30 August 1877, leaving her parents devastated. After her death, her father found an unfinished romance entitled Bianca, a the young Spanish maiden, and a French novel called Le Journal de Mademoiselle de Hervers. Taru's genius reached its culmination in ancient ballads and legends of Hindustan, published posthumously in 1882. Tarudat's poetry displays a rare talent for storytelling and a deep love of nature, which helped her scale the heights of poetic achievement. So, students, it is a long introduction about the poet, but was a very sad and heart touching one. We have just seen the ups and downs in the life of the great poet Tarudat. Gobind Chandra Dutt was an established Bengali poet. So we can say that her family had a cultural background. He was so much influenced by Western writings, particularly literature, that he changed his religion from Hindu to Christian and moved to European country. But eventually they returned home and a series of tragic incidents occurred in their life. Brother Abzu and sister Aru both died. Perhaps that was one of the many sources of inspirations to write poetry, so much so that her last writing was published posthumously. Students, posthumously means after death. She died in 1877, and the last writing, that is, Ancient Ballads and Legends of Hindustan, was published in 1882 after 5 years of her death. So, students, let us start the poem. Three happy children in a darkened room. What do they gauge on wide open eyes? A dense, dense forest where no sunbeam pries, and in its center a cleared spot. There bloomed gigantic flowers on creepers that embrace tall trees. There, in a quiet, lucid lake, the white swans glide there, whirling from the brake. The peacock springs there, hordes of wild deer race. Their patches gleam with yellow waving grain. Their blue smoke from strings altars rises light. There dwells in peace the poet anchorite. But who is this fair lady? Not in vain she weeps for lo, and every tear she sheds, tears from three pairs of young eyes fall, Amen. And bowed in sorrow are the three young heads. It is an old, old story, and the lay which has evoked sad Sita from the past is by a mother sung. This hush at last and melts the picture from their sight away. Yet shall they dream of it until the day? When shall those children by their mother's side gather, me, as erst at eventide? This is a beautiful poem, students. Let us understand it through discussion. Students, here it refers to the forest. So, and in its center, a clear spot. That means in the center of the forest, a part was cleared. There bloom gigantic flowers on creepers that embrace tall trees. Students, it is a beautiful picture given by the poet. Around that clear spot in the middle of the forest, there were tall trees, and on these tall trees, there were creepers. Now, students, what are creepers? Creepers are long but small plants. These were so small that they climb upon big trees, and from their stems, flowers come. So, this is exactly what is said in the lines that those tall trees had creepers on them, and there were flowers blooming from the stems and branches of these creepers. So it was a very beautiful sight. During a quiet lucid lake, the white swans glide. So this is another picture. So inside that spot, there was a lake. You know what a lake is? And lucid means very clear. It was a lake with clear water, and in the lake, on the water, white swans were gliding. Now, students, swan. Swan is a bird that belongs to the duck family, and glide means to swim. So, in other words, there was a lake by the side of that cleared spot in the middle of the forest, and in that lake, on the clear water, white swans were swimming. It was a really beautiful scene. Whirling from the break, the peacock springs. Whirring. Whirring is a movement that is particularly when you move to and fro. Okay, and here, students, it is talked about the movement of the wings of the peacock. When the peacock springs from inside the forest and stops, that means put a break to its movement, there is a movement of its wings also. So that is whirring. So next line would clarify the meaning more. Let me read the whole line. Whirring from the break, the peacock springs. The peacock springs from inside the forest and all of a sudden puts a break to its movement to find a clear spot, and in doing so, the wings of the peacock move to and fro a bit. That is whirring from the break. The wings of a peacock are nothing but a bunch of long and beautiful feathers. So it would be better if we use the word feather than wings. There was a vibration in the feathers of the peacock because of a sudden stop, that is break. Let's move to the next line. There herds of wild deer race. Okay. So here we find again deer. So both animals and birds. Here we find deer, which is a beautiful animal running from one part of the forest to the other. It seems to be a very fairyland, but it was. The next line. Their patches gleam with yellow, waving green. Here, the poet gives an idea of a bit of agriculture. She says that some patches of agricultural land could also be found there, and in those land one could see yellow grains waving. Here, waving means moving from one side to another. Maybe because of a soft wind blowing there, it looked like waving. And gleam means shine. Because of the movement of the grains from one side to another, grain here means the plant itself. The grains shone bright. The next lines, there blue smoke from strange altars rises light. There dwells in peace the poet anchorite. Students, there are many references that you will find in these lines. Blue smoke. Blue smoke refers to the smoke that we see after burning incense sticks. Incense sticks, we offer before God and goddesses. Altar. Altar is a part of a temple or a church where we offer things for God. So, the poet says that blue smoke could be seen rising from altars that suggest that there was a temple also in that spot. If not temple, a place of worship. She says that the altars were strange. Why strange? Because worshipping in the midst of a forest itself is a strange action. So, the whole process of worship is here referred to as very strange. And the smoke that arose was very light in color. And here we find who lived there? The poet anchorite. Now, poet anchorite refers to Valmiki, who is said to have written the epic Ramayana. So here he is referred to as poet. Anchorite means historical. Here, so he was a historical poet who wrote the great Ramayana. So he was there living. Let's move to the next lines. But who is this fair lady? Not in vain she weeps. So, students, here the poet refers to a beautiful lady. Fair here means beautiful. And here she must be Sita, goddess Sita. And here we find that Sita was weeping. Now, students, you have to remember one thing, that in the first line we found that there were three children and they were in a darkened room and they were listening to the stories being told by their mother. So here the narrator is the mother, and the story was about Sita in her second exile. Not in vain she weeps, for lo, at every tear she sheds, tears from three pairs of young eyes fall amain. So the poet, in the voice of the mother, that is the narrator, says that Sita wept for some reasons, and she refers to some events of the epic Ramayana for which she had to leave her husband, Lord Rama. But those are not given in the poem, so you need not refer to them in your answers. Sita wept for some reasons. There were valid reasons for her weeping, and in the vision, the children also were moved by her weeping. They also started weeping, and tears fell from their eyes in a very speedy manner. Amain means fast or speedy. Here, students, we have to see one thing, that the children did not only found in their vision Sita weeping, but their mother also weeping for Sita. Here is a great reference and universal meaning. Here, the poet may refer to the whole womanhood, how women suffer throughout their life. Listening about the tragic life of goddess Sita, the three children were carried about by emotions. Let me read the next lines. And bowed in sorrow are the three young heads. The three children were very emotional and they bowed their heads to show their emotions. Next lines. It is an old, old story, and the lay which has evoked sad Sita from the past is by a mother sung. Here, students, old and old refers to the beginning of human life. It has a symbolic meaning that women from the beginning are destined to suffer in their life. And now, in the present state, we find that the mother was also a woman. She could also suffer from the same pain. Next lines. This hushed at last and melts the picture from their sight away. Yet shall they dream of it until the day. Here, students, this refers to the actions of the three children and the mother. The action finally stopped and there was a silence. But the children won't forget it. They would dream about it until the next day. The last two lines. When shall those children by their mother's side gather? Ah me, as erst at eventide. Here, students, in the last two lines, the poet makes a personal note. That is taken aback and she goes to her own childhood when she, with her brother Abzu and sister Aru, sat together to listen to the stories told by their mother at bedtime. She is here nostalgic because now both Abzu and Aru are no more in this world. So she makes a wish that if she could again sit together with her brother and sister at evening to listen to stories of her mother. So, students, we come to the end of this poem. For today, let us stop here. Remember that the poet here is Tarudat, but the narrator is a mother who told a story to her three children, and in the last two lines, we find a personal note of the poet that refers to her own brother and sister who are no more in this world. So, students, let us stop here. Meet you again in the next class. Till then, bye.